So it's all about using Google. Particularly, we're going to focus on quizzes and forms today. So other sessions we've got available look at starting with Google Classroom and assignments in greater detail on how to set assignments and what assignments work best. And we've got some on online safety and a session, of course, on Meet and how to use Meet with children. So those are, I'll say, later this week and have been recorded from last week. And this is a demo account. We've got a demo teacher in our demo school, and I'm going to show you using that account how we can set up quizzes and how we might use quizzes. And then I have a second account set up, which is Albert, our test student, and we'll be able to see how Albert views these things once they've been set for him. So there are several ways of setting and creating a quiz. This is Google. Google has several ways of doing everything. One of the best, more modern, most recent ways of doing it is via the classwork tab in your classroom. You can create a quiz assignment. And this quiz assignment takes you straight through. It creates a blank quiz, and it is ready for you to then click into to edit your quiz. So quizzes are self-marking. If they have simple questions which are multiple choice or multiple correct answers, then they will mark themselves, which is brilliant, which is a great time saver for teachers. If you want to have more open-ended questions, you can, but you need to be aware that open-ended questions mean you'll have to manually mark them. So if you're setting an assignment, we could create a quick title. So let's call it our chocolate quiz. I could write instructions, and certainly I probably would as we were remote working. If I was using it in a classroom, then I wouldn't need to maybe so much. And then the quiz is here ready to use. When I click on it, it will open a new tab and it will open the quiz. So it's imaginatively called blank quiz at the moment, and that may confuse me later. And it has also decided where it's going to save this for me, which is one of the drawbacks of creating a quiz this way, because it is associated with the classroom and not necessarily how I'd like to organize myself by having it in a folder. So at this point, we're going to park creating a quiz through the classroom and look at the alternative way of doing it. So the alternative way is through drive.google.com. And my Microsoft brain, of course, would tell me that I would go into the software, create the quiz, and then save it. My Google side of the brain says, actually, no, you go into Drive and you find the folder you want to put it in. So we're doing about chocolate. So I might go into chocolate. And then once I'm in the right folder, I would create it. Now, there is no quiz option. It's not a discrete thing because it's actually built out of Google Forms. So this is the downside with going this route. You have to say, okay, I'm going to go and create a quiz using Google Forms. Creating it this way means that, yes, I know where the quiz is. I can find it because I filed it myself. And I know that it's associated with the chocolate topic. Therefore, it's in the chocolate folder. And I would find it easy to come back. And if I wanted to reuse it, say, next year or another time, I would find this a lot easier. And again, it's called Untitled Form. Let's call it chocolate quiz. I have to call it number 2 because I've already got one. And it will automatically put that in as the title here as well, which I'm not sure we need it as the title, number 2. And then we're straight into making questions. So what we've got here is basically a form creator at this point. Switching back to the other one, the one that's still called blank quiz. This is the one that was created by the system. Again, I can name this, so I could decide to call it chocolate quiz. More logical, isn't it, to call it chocolate classroom quiz? There we are. And it's still calling itself blank quiz. This one doesn't automatically rename itself because it already had a name. So again, chocolate quiz will do as a title. So this one is already set up to be a quiz, a self-marking thing. And if I look in the settings of this one and go to quizzes, it's already been assigned to become a quiz. But there are some issues that people are running into. One of the big issues is, by default, it's not identifying the users. And the way that the Google platform identifies the users is to tie it to their email addresses. So if I was just to complete this quiz and share it with the children, what would happen is I would get a lot of anonymous data back. And some teachers are running into this issue and are getting confused by it. We've had a number of calls for help over this, because it doesn't automatically collect their identity, you end up with a completely anonymous quiz, which is pretty useless as a teacher, to be honest. So one of the first things you're going to have to do is to go into a quiz and make sure that it is collecting email addresses. And it's not going to ask them to type in their email address. They've already logged into Google to access this. So it's just going to automatically pull through their identity, which is absolutely brilliant for me as a teacher. It saves me a lot of time and effort. So while we're here and looking at settings, let's see what other settings there are. So we know we've had to turn it on as a quiz, and that's something that's automatically happened for us because this one's been created as a quiz. If I were to be working in my classroom, then this is quite a nice little feature. If you've got Chromebooks, it will put them in locked mode, which means, as it says here, students aren't able to go and look at any other tab. So they're not allowed to look at other resources. So they can't Google the answers, for example. But obviously, as most of our children are working at home and are not going to be on Chromebooks, it's not such an issue. And then we've got this option for releasing grades. So after they've submitted their quiz, it will automatically mark it and tell them what they've got, which is lovely and quick instant feedback. It will also tell them the correct answer to the ones they got wrong, and you can build feedback into your quiz, but it's not something that you have to do. So one option is, yes, immediate. If there are going to be questions you would like to mark after they've handed it in, so for example, if you've added open-ended questions, which you're going to need to manually mark, then choosing a later after manual review, one automatically turns on that email collection, which is quite nice. It means I don't have to worry about remembering to say, yes, I want to have the email address. But secondly, it means that it's going to allow me to hold these and they won't release the marks and to show them what they got right or wrong instantly. And then we've got a few other options. So can they see which questions they've missed when it hands it back? Can they see what the correct answers are? Can they see what points I've assigned for it? All sort of important things really for quizzes. So they're the quiz settings. If we go back to general, yes, collect email address is really, really important to switch that on. This is restricted to people within our domain. So I'm on the 123 ICT domain. Therefore, it is restricted to our users only. If I wanted to make this quiz available to the general public, to parents even, then I would have to untick that. And yes, I can limit it to one response, which means they will only be able to submit one answer. They can't have a second go to think, get a better score. And then there are some other options. Are you going to allow them to submit after entry or see a summary chart text responses at the end? And presentation-wise, if it's a really long quiz, all the advice is to switch on the progress bar because they won't lose heart because I know how far through it they are. You can also, if you're using it in a classroom environment, this is quite a nice feature, shuffle question order. There may be cases when you don't wish to use this, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But for now, it is quite a nice way of being able to just make sure that if children are sitting next to each other on Chromebooks, for example, this will allow them to be on different questions at the same time because it will shuffle the question order for each student, which is quite a nice, handy thing. And then we've got this option to show link to another response if we've allowed them to multiple fill. And you can also stick in your own personalized confirmation message, which appears at the end when they've hit submit. So, thanking them for taking part or pushing them at another URL or whatever you like to do. So if you've made changes to any of these, you must remember to press the save button. It's a really important thing to do. And those changes will be automatically updated. So we can see here now it says this form is automatically collecting email addresses for 123 ICT users, which is brilliant. And I need that. Otherwise, I can't identify them at the end. So that's the settings I need to tweak if it's been set up by Classroom automatically. If I'm creating my own, then it's not even a quiz. So the first thing I need to do is say, yes, I want to make this a quiz. It's got to be a quiz. And again, all the other settings I might want to do. Do I want to release it immediately or later after manual review? What do I want them to see? In general, yes, you see this way, because it's a form, it already is automatically collecting email addresses, which is great. And again, do I want them to have one go only and the presentation? So it's all exactly the same because it is the same program that is running it. It's just if you create it from the classroom, it automatically makes it a quiz. If you create it as a form yourself using Drive, then you have to turn it into a quiz. So these are both now quizzes. So from now on, they are identical. So I shall just focus on my classroom quiz for now, just to make things quick and easy. So here's my classroom quiz. I can add an extra description if I want, explaining a little bit more about what's going on. And the first question is already here. And it's defaulting to multiple choice. So What is the main ingredient? Oh, can't type. For chocolate. Question. And now it's multiple choice, so I can pop in some options for answers. So I've got my multiple choice questions, and I'm happy with the format of multiple choice. My answer key is where I go and set the correct answer and how many points it's worth. So if we assume it's actually cocoa that's the main ingredient for chocolate, and I would give maybe 1 point for getting that correct. I can also at this point add some answer feedback. So I could say for incorrect answers, feedback about this, I can actually include in my feedback a link. So I could actually point them at a resource, a website to have a look at, or even a YouTube video. I could embed a YouTube video to say, go back and watch this video maybe to find out about it. And I can give feedback on correct answers as well. So feedback is an option. Hit done, and that's now updated itself, and that's worth 1 point, as we can see. From here, I can carry on adding questions. So here's the second question. There are a number of different formats for questions. So a short answer, short piece of text, will not self-mark. If I choose a short answer, I can pop an answer key in, but it has to be an exact. So one, they have to spell it 100% correctly, and two, it has to be exactly the same format. So it becomes less useful for me as a teacher. So by all means, yes, have one, assign it some points, but you're going to have to manually mark this afterwards, because it will just get marked wrong by the system, because it's very, very difficult to actually to get children to type exactly what you want them to type, which is the problem. So short answer and paragraph are great, but you will need to manually mark those. And paragraph is just exactly the same. It's free text, but it's much more scope for them to type something in. Multiple choice is the one correct answer. If you want to have more than one correct answer, this always catches out children, then check boxes allows you to have more than one correct answer. So what is in chocolate? And this time we could have things like, again, an answer key. This time we can say, yes, these actually, all these maybe go into chocolate, and how many points you're going to give them. So let's go for those 2 and 2. And again, I can pop answer feedback in, and this time my question is worth 2, and there are 2 different correct answers. So that particular option allows you to have multiple correct answers. Let's add a third question and have a look at the rest of the options. A drop down lets you pick from a list. It's very similar to multiple choice, but you end up with quite a long list maybe. So it could be useful if you want a lot of options. And then file upload, we're not going to really use for a quiz. It's useful for a form because it allows your respondents to upload something to attach to the actual form. Linear scale gives a number scale. You can go only from 1 till 10. That's the limit. Much better for, again, forms, collections. How do you feel about that sort of question? So it's not really appropriate for quizzes. Multiple choice grid gives you rows and columns and gets very complicated. I would probably steer clear of it because it's more likely to confuse children, the same with the checkbox grid. So I would really say, if you're going to create a self-marking quiz to help make things easy for you, these are the 3 options. If you want to be able to allow them scope to put in a free answer and you're going to manually mark, then yes, by all means, add short answers and paragraphs, absolutely. Date and time, not really appropriate for a quiz. So you can see it's quite simple to add questions. And if you want to rearrange questions, it's drag and drop. So very quick and easy to rearrange questions. From the 3 dots, I've got a few choices, so I can show description, limit to 1 response per column, shuffle. This is specific to do with the type of question I've got going. So if I change that to multiple choice, then I get some slightly different options. So one here is we can actually jump sections. Again, it's more useful for a form, but depending on an answer, you can jump them to a particular section, which could be quite useful at certain times. You can also decide whether questions are going to be required. They have to put an answer in, or they don't have to put an answer in. On the whole, for a quiz, they're going to want to try and answer every question to get the best mark. So therefore, you don't need to make it required. I can duplicate the question if I want to use it again further down, or want to just tweak the wording slightly. And this is how I get rid of a question if it's one I don't want any longer. So editing, that's very simple. What you can also do is you can add more content. So I could import questions. I can add just free text. So I could add a text box, which is something like watch this video. And that just appears as a piece of text. I could actually use that to put in a section of text for them to read if I wanted to. I can also insert an image and a video. So I'm going to insert a video at this point. The videos are all YouTube videos, the same way that Classroom works from YouTube. And best practice would be to go away, research your video, have it ready, and then you'll come back with the link which you can paste in. I'm just going to take a pot shot at something because it's only for demonstration. So let's go chocolate making. Why not? There we go. Search for those. And I'm just going to pull one at random. There we go. We'll do that one. Select. And that will actually embed the video actually into the middle of the quiz. So this is quite nice because you can ask them to watch the video and then ask them questions based on this video. Again, it comes a bit small. You can resize things. When the children come to look at the actual quiz, they can actually choose to watch this full screen. So it doesn't matter if there are details you want them to better see, and it seems a bit small. So I could then ask more questions based on this underneath it. And I can also break it into sections. So we can have a section for the quiz, although most quizzes work best if they're not massively too long, really. Creating a quiz, this one here is one I prepared earlier. This is actually one we've got live on our 1, 2, 3 Key Stage 2. This is the actual upper Key Stage 2 version. Classroom, which we made available for 1, 2, 3 schools. It's anonymous. It doesn't collect names and it doesn't collect the email addresses, but we've asked for a bit of general data. So this is form. This is not points. You don't get any points for this, obviously. But then we've managed to embed some of the videos. So we've used the great COP Play Like Share ones, and the child can hit play and watch it. Can go full screen. And then I've got questions underneath it. And again, these are multiple choice. And here's one to catch them out, a 3-pointer with 3 correct answers. And so you can do that. You can embed a number of different videos, a number of different resources. You could put an image in. The image could be some text for them to read on an image. It could be a map. Have a look at the map. Please tell us what is shown at, and give them a good reference to look at. Or, you know, there's all sorts of options with quizzes, which is quite nice to save them having to go out to an external resource, look at it, and then come back into the quiz to answer the questions. And again, we've got a free text piece at the bottom and the submit button. So this is how it looks, as you see, to the child, really, because that's the quiz we're going to end up with it. As teacher, then I get to see the inside, and I can go in here and I get instant summary. So I've got people with between 11 and 21 points so far, which is great. Which school year are you in? So again, we've got majority year 6s having go at this, which is good. And we've got more girls having a go than boys so far, which is also interesting. There we are. But yeah, that's just data. So here we get to see so they're getting questions right. We can see that we're getting lots of correct answers, which is wonderful. We've got a few that are misconceptions, which is also good for me as a teacher to look at and see which things people are getting wrong. This question was a bit tricky, actually, because some of the answers are nearly correct, which is interesting. So it gives me instant feedback as a summary, but it also allows me to go question by question or look at an individual's responses. And again, these are all anonymized, so but I can go through and see exactly what they put. At this point, I can give instant feedback. So if there is a question that's incorrect, like this one, I've given feedback to say, actually, there is more than one correct answer to this. So that will be visible to the child now, because it's been it's a comment that's been put on here and handed back. So you can give individual feedback, which is great. And then if you've got a longer question, a text piece of question, you can assign it some marks. You can add feedback to that as well if you wish. So the quiz allows me to do quite a lot, really, as teacher, and get quite a lot of information back. So here's my lovely chocolate quiz. It's ready for me to send. Well, it's not very ready for me to send, but let's say it was ready for me to send. I can now share that easily with the class. So I was halfway through creating it. It's here. It's still calling it blank quiz here. I've got my instructions. I could set it to lock mode. I've got all the usual assignment things, so I can actually assign now to multiple classes, which is quite nice. I could differentiate and send it to only some students, but poor old Albert's the only student in this class, so he's going to get it anyway. I could set a due date, which is quite a handy thing to do, because if I do manage to set a due date, what's going to happen is that will appear as a prompt on the student's page. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. And I can attach it to a topic if I like. So let's create a chocolate topic for the moment. And I could attach a rubric if I wanted to give them some information about it, but I'm not going to. And again, I can schedule this. So I could decide actually this is going to appear on Wednesday. But let's just hit assign for the moment. So that's just now being assigned to Albert. So here's Albert in his classroom, and it's happened instantly. There's chocolate. Here's the chocolate quiz. So Albert will click on this. He will go to the chocolate quiz. It opens in a new window. He'll go through and he'll go, yes, it's definitely that, and it's that, and it's that, and it's that. And he can watch the video, and I've never finished that question, but he can submit the answers. So that's great. Response submitted and assignments marked as done. It automatically tells me as teacher then that this assignment's been finished. So it says turned in, which is wonderful. And that bit is quite nice because it just all joins it together. So that's the advantage of setting the quiz this way. So that's Albert. He's finished that. That's done. As teacher, coming back to teacher, I've got the chocolate quiz here. I can see it's been turned in. If I click on it, it will take me so I can see what it will look like for them. Not terribly useful. If I go view assignment, it will let me again get to it, but where do I get the results from? It all gets a bit confusing. So this becomes quite difficult to then get back into this thing here, the thing I started with, where I find my responses. So this is the downside of doing it via the classroom. So yes, I've got it, great, and I know who, and I've got the results, and I can go through individually. It's collecting his identity. So no, this is Albert's, which is great. So I actually have an identity now. So this is created as the way it should be, and I would have the ability to also convert this to a spreadsheet. So once I've maybe got the at some point, you could do it immediately, and any new people who take part in the quiz will automatically go into the spreadsheet, and it just gives you a quick summary of who, score, and then each question and their response. So you've got that as a sort of to keep as a great way of being able to say look at the data, analyze the data in more depth if you wish to have that available to you. But there's an awful lot of information just from in the responses. So if I hadn't got that open, how do I go ahead and find this? So I know chocolate's here. I know the quiz is here, and that just takes me into the quiz. I know I can go here, and it will take me here, and it will take me into the quiz. So none of this is particularly useful for me. But if I open the folder for the assignment, great, I get an error. So that doesn't help me at all either. So basically, I've got to go hunting for this this actual file that was created. So I've got to go into my drive, and I've got to go hunting for this chocolate classroom quiz. So with any luck, it might be in my recents file. Recents is a great thing to look at, and there it is, chocolate classroom quiz. So I can get back to it this way if I need to. And here's my original editable version with the responses from Albert. So that's one way of finding it. The second way is to go hunting for the actual place it decided to put it. So I would assume it's put it inside the classroom. So I've got a folder called Classroom. It's created automatically by the system because I've got a Google Classroom. In here, there is a folder for every single class I've got. This class is called, I think it's now been renamed. I think it's that one. And in fact, there it is. There's the chocolate classroom quiz. So it's in the wrong folder because I've renamed the class, which doesn't help much anyway. And this is the downside of using the quiz directly from the classroom. So there's pluses and there's minuses. Pop-ups keep telling me to remind me to do things. So it is pros and cons using it via classroom. So if we forget those for a moment and just look at the quiz that I started setting up, and I did this one via our folder. So I went into Classroom, sorry, I went into Drive, and I decided to create it inside my Drive and inside a folder that made sense to me. Chocolate topic. Here's my chocolate quiz. So I created it as a form. I went into settings, I turned it into a quiz because you have to do that. And here I can again add questions in exactly the same way. So let's really quickly put one question down. Oops, decided it wants me to be Google does that. It decides what it thinks the question type should be, and sometimes it's not what you want. I didn't set a very good question, so it obviously confused it. Let's put Coke, and let's put there we are. It's debatable which of those is the main ingredient, but let's go through and give it a correct answer. So I've got one question so far. If I just share this file with the students, what happens is they're able to come in and edit this. So unfortunately, this is the thing that's slightly different with quizzes. If I've created a quiz this way, I have to send it to the students. I have to use the link, and I have to post that link into the classroom. So if I go back to my classroom and classwork, I would go create, and I can do it as an assignment. Alternative chocolate quiz. There we are. And this time I would add it as a link using that link I took out of my file. And quite often it goes then Google Forms sign-in, which it looks a bit naff, not exactly what I wanted. So let's add that to a chocolate topic, and let's just quickly assign that as it is. So that's the difference in that I have to go into my actual quiz and I have to go send, get the link, copy the link, and then share that link in the classroom to better post it out, which is a bit of a downside. So for Albert now, that's the original chocolate quiz. It's been handed in, which is great. Here's the new one. He's got a Google form sign-in thing, and he comes into here and he submits it. And okay, the response has been recorded, but what it doesn't do is turn it in automatically, unfortunately. So it still says it's assigned. So if I then want my student to tell me they finished it, they have to go view assignment, which is the second place they can get here, and they have to say mark as done to hand it in to flag it up to me as being done. Now, the reason why I did set some schedules on this was because actually in stream it would have been here in the upcoming, but obviously I've done them both now, so there's nothing upcoming. So putting a date on a piece of work does manage to push it into this upcoming box for students, which is really quite helpful. So that's a rather muddly, pros and cons of the two different ways of setting an assignment, which is a quiz, because quizzes have caused confusion. So to be fairly simple, they've both got drawbacks. Creating a quiz assignment makes it quick and easy. You get the form created ready to go. It's set up as a quiz, but it's not automatically picking up children's identities, downside. And when I want to come back and look at it later and see how well they've done, I've got to go hunting for it through my Drive, downside. Creating it in Google Drive, I have to create it as a form. I have to convert it to a quiz, but at least I know where I've created it and it's easy for me to come back and find later. But I do have to, again, come back to Google Drive to go hunting for it to look at the information later on. So there are drawbacks to both methods of using quizzes, unfortunately. So quizzes are a really nice resource. Really, really useful. Self-marking feature is wonderful. The fact that you can also give them extra feedback is nice. But there is the downside of neither methods are totally seamless, and they both have slight drawbacks the way you use them.